Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Nerds Zen. I am Paul, and I have been pouring every spare moment of my life. I've only been sleeping 3 hours a night, okay, for the last month. I have dropped 150 plus hours into this game, Mass Effect Andromeda, and my review, I'm almost finished with everything, every task, every side quest, everything you can possibly imagine. And I'm completing every single thing that there is before I give my review. I would really love to play it twice before I give my review, but I think once is enough, and I need to take a little bit of a break. But it's got me thinking, because there's been so many negative reviews, so many negative things on the internet about Mass Effect Andromeda, and I don't understand it. I don't get where all the hate is coming from. And it led me to one question, and I really want to open up a discussion with all of you out there. Why do you play video games? Why do we play video games? Is it because of the graphics? Because the graphics are super sweet? Is it because of the gameplay, that the mechanics and with the controllers these days, that the gameplay and features are like never before? Is it for the social aspect? Is it so that we can play with our friends? Why do you play video games? Me personally, I play video games because I love a good story. I have my life, which is fantastic. I have a beautiful family, my lovely wife, my beautiful daughter, Revan, who is named after a video game character. Bonus points in if you guys can tell me which game we named her from. Her name is Revan Inara. And if you can tell me which video game, I'll be like super duper impressed. But anyways, I love a good story. Video games have always told a story since the dawn of video games, since it was like a little thing here and a little thing here. I mean, little paddles and knocking a little ball. I mean, that tells a story. That's the story of a ping pong champion who, traveled to America from communist China to escape the oppression. And then in the finals of the Olympics, he faces his mortal enemy in China. And that's the story of Pong. Yeah, I bet you guys didn't know that's the true story of Pong. Pac-Man, his house was haunted. And the only way that he could get rid of these ghosts was to eat all of the pellets. And then a special pellet so he could eat them and send them home. But video games have always told a story. There was a story of Mario, who was a plumber, who set out to save a princess, and she kept on being moved to different castles. I mean, the premise of Mario, if you think about it, it's like Taken. Ordinary, average guy with a certain set of skills, saving a princess, and every time he gets to that place, the prince has been moved. But they've told a story, and they didn't need great graphics to do it. They didn't need complete seamless gameplay. I remember as a kid, so many times my game's crashing. I'd be right in the middle of a level. I would be fighting Bowser. I would be right there, ready to gain the Master Sword. I would be flipping up a hill while I'm shooting bullets, and my game would freeze. My game would, the screen would go pixelated. It would go blue and green and have like little bars, and that was the end of it. And back in my day when I was a kid, when I was playing, if your game crashed, your game froze, you stopped playing. Because if you've dedicated hours upon hours, there was no going back and hitting autosave. There was no going back and picking up from a checkpoint. There was starting over. That was it. So if you're on a different world, if you're 3 or 4 or 5 hours into this game, you're close to finishing it, and your game freezes, you just decide to go to bed. And that was it. I mean, and the games did that all the time. Cartridges were super unreliable. Video games back in my day told stories without graphics. Mario told a beautiful story, an amazing story. Legend of Zelda told a great story. They did this without the use of faces. They didn't have, you couldn't really look at somebody's face. I mean, even to the point of games further on down the road, like Metal Gear Solid, which had tremendous voice acting, but the graphics were so bad. I mean, there wasn't even a face on there. It was just a giant like polygon. And we understood the story. We understood how he was feeling. When Link would make this expression in Ocarina of Time, you knew what it meant. It was terrible graphics compared to today, but you still knew what he was doing. You still knew what the story was, if you're paying attention. These days, I feel like people pay way too much attention to things that just don't matter. They pay way too much attention to how they're, whether they're looking at their eyes. Well, if you care that much, your name is George Lucas, because you just made Ewoks blink. Because that's what you care about. You care more about the aesthetics than the effort that was put into it. You care more about how their mouth moves than you do what their mouth is saying. Mass Effect Andromeda has some of the best dialogue I've ever experienced in a game. It has one of the best stories that I've played. It is fantastic. And like I said, I will get to my full review of it. But the story-wise, it was solid. It was everything that I wanted Mass Effect 3 to be and more. So I don't understand all the hate that it's getting because it's got a few glitches. Yeah, there's quite a bit. There's quite a few glitches, eyes going weird and weird faces. But does that really constitute a bad game? Or does it constitute a really big game? That game is huge. There is so much stuff to do. And the only game, in my opinion, so far that I have played that compares in scope to Mass Effect Andromeda was The Witcher 3. Which again, I put close to 200 hours into that game. And yeah, that game was solid. That game was tight. That game was practically perfect graphically. So yeah, the bar was set pretty high for that one. But having a few glitches doesn't take away from the game. It doesn't take away from your experience. The gameplay was smooth. The controls were great. The fighting was fantastic. The shooting was on point. The story and the dialogue and the voice acting, my God, the voice acting was so good. Why is there so much hate? Because we're focusing on the wrong things. When I played video games when I was a teenager, when I was young, I didn't think about graphics. I didn't think about voice acting. I mean, Ocarina of Time had zero voice acting, and it's still one of the greatest games ever made. So why is it so important now? Why is that bar set so high that one little glitch can ruin your gaming experience? Let me know how you feel about this. Leave your comments below. Was Mass Effect good for you? Was it bad for you? Did those weird eyes and weird facial expressions ruin your gaming experience? And hello. Come here. Oh, this is Darth Revan. Can you say hi? Hey, say hi.
Hi.
What sound does a tauntaun make?
Meow.
Meow. Big hug first. Give me a big hug. And a big hug. Oh, I love you. Say I love you.
Talk.
You want to talk? Okay, later, okay? All right, give me a big hug. One more big hug. You're just reaching for the microphone, aren't you? Thank you so much for watching. I am Paul from the Nerd Zen. Hit like, share, and subscribe, and happy Nerd Zen.